So let's get into the music and your life and career, your family. I have so many questions. We have about an hour with Brandon today. You are originally from the East Texas area, which is where I'm living now. I know you're not. I don't believe you're in East Texas anymore, right? You've
No, in fact, I've been down here in Central Texas since 1999, and
yeah,
we've been in
25 years.
Salado. Yeah, we've been in Salado for the last since 17. We moved up to Salado and got out in the country a little bit, and the city's coming to us from the north, from Waco, Temple, Belton, and then from the south, it's coming to us obviously from Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown, that whole area. But it's my little slice of heaven out here. And yeah, absolutely. I did grow up and born and raised in East Texas, Carthage,
Hmm.
Texas. I'm a bulldog through and through. And, I still got a lot of family that lived there. My mom, my dad, my brother, his family, some cousins in that whole area. My sisters, one of my sisters lives in Longview. So I still have a lot of East Texas connections
So
for
what was
sure.
it? What was it like for you growing up in the East Texas area?
Oh my gosh. I always tell people that if you've ever watched The Jungle Book or read The Jungle Book, I grew up Mowgli of the forest, right? We
Hmm.
grew up in a dead end road, which I've sang about before, and in Panola County, out in a little community called Ryderville, just outside of Carthage. And I grew up playing in the woods. I grew up living in just one of the greatest spots, in my opinion, that there ever was. Those piney woods of East Texas, I still get nostalgic every time I get back to them. I think of all the fun times, all the great times that I had there, and just the hunting, the fishing, the hiking, the playing with my cousins and stuff when we were kids, riding our bikes for miles to go fishing in a pond down the railroad tracks a couple of miles. We did it all, and we had freedom. We talk about this a lot now, but Generation X, I feel like we were the last of the lucky, right?
We were
And
absolutely.
we weren't tracked, we weren't followed. We were told to get outside and to go play and come in when it got dark.
Hmm.
And by golly, we took advantage of that. And, I think that's evident in a lot of the music that I write, especially the early music of my love and appreciation for growing up in East Texas.
Yeah, our lives are ruled by the streetlights, right? You better be home before those streetlights come on. That's what my parents always told me. If that streetlight comes on and your butt's not in this house, then I'm don't make me come looking for you.
Well,
Um,
we lived on a dead end road, and we had one lamp outside, and it was a big enough lamp you could see it to get home. But yeah, exactly. That's the way it was. And even my kids talk about, especially my son, my 18-year-old, he talks about the fact that he wishes he would have grown up in with our generation and our time frame. And I said, well, I mean, you can wish in one hand, you'd be older in the other. So
hmm Yeah,
yeah, be careful.
I've heard that from my kids too. Some of the throwbacks, and thankfully we still have kids that are throwbacks because of the way we raise them. I feel so that's always good. So, you talked about how East Texas may have shaped your sound originally. So, what were some of your earliest musical memories, and even some of your influences back in your early days?
Yeah, so living down in Ryderville outside of Carthage, we had a lot of family that surrounded us. So my grandparents lived up and around the corner, and I had aunts and uncles and cousins who lived close to us as well. So there was a lot of family around, and we were always bouncing on our bikes from place to place. If you went to my grandmother's place and walked in, she would probably be listening to something like Conway Twitty. She loved Jim Reeves. She loved Floyd Kramer. She
Hmm.
loved Elvis.
Hmm.
You go down to the pond where my papa was likely hanging out with his buddies after work, maybe playing a little poker, drinking a little cold beer, and you might hear some Johnny Paycheck, some Waylon Jennings, some Willie Nelson. It was just different everywhere that you went, but it was foundation was a lot in that country realm. And then also, I always like to thank and appreciate my mother, because my mother is the one who was kind of more all over the board musically inclined as far as her interest. And so it wasn't just the country music. She was a big, huge fan of Elvis Presley, and thus I am as well. I grew up on listening to that Elvis Presley, and then things like the Commodores and music like that.
Nice.
So there was a lot of music around, and people, when they talk to me, a lot of times they'll say, "Well, it's obvious that you have this country background to you, but sometimes you don't sound that way
It's true.
necessarily." And I say that a lot of that came from those country influences that gave me that foundation. But as well, I grew up listening to all kinds of music, and I believe the first cassette that I ever bought was Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Let's go.
So I grew up loving Metallica, and thus my kids love Metallica. Music is such a happy medium because if you search just a little bit, especially in this day and age, you can be introduced to new artists every single day. And the music, I believe, that we're listening to today, if you're not talking about major radio platforms, if you're talking about Americana, Red Dirt, Texas music, I think you're going to be able to find that a lot of us have many different influences, musical influences, and thus that's why you get the different kind of music that you get from us.
And that's what I love about talking with Brandon, specifically because you have such a unique perspective when it comes to Texas music, and you're so right. You look under the hood, so to speak, of Texas Red Dirt or Texas country, whatever you want to call it. There's so many different styles and genres and influential styles within the music here in Texas. That's what makes it so great, in my opinion, as a fan. And speaking of Elvis, I got the TCB right there.
There you
So
go.
I'm right there with you. So when did you know that music was going to be a bit more than a hobby for you?
Well, we have to back up quite a ways before we even get to that spot. But being raised in the church and singing in the church, I was active in the youth group. I was active in leading singing in our church. I was in the band in school, in junior high and high school. I also was part of a couple of different groups that we sang for events, whether that be Christmas carols or whether would be at events at school. So music was always around me and was always a part of what I did. And in fact, when I graduated high school, I probably could have went to college on some scholarships that I didn't take, just from a standpoint of being 18 and thinking, what am I going to do with a music degree? I don't want to be a band director. And at that point, the guitar was not in my life. So I didn't really know what to do. And so that's where my degree from industrial technology um, came to be, because I didn't know that music was a part of my future. So let's fast forward in college, a couple of 3 or 4 years, and I was a long-term student. I wasn't there for 4 years. It took me about 6 to get out. But I ended up going home to a party. I had living over on Lake Palestine. And I went back home to a party. A couple of my friends were playing guitar, and I thought, man, that looks amazing. I called my dad. I said, hey, do you still have that old Fender in the closet? He said, I do. I said, can I borrow it, take it back to college? He said, yes, I did. And immediately I went and bought a Mel Bay book, basically a book for dummies, guitar
Mm-hmm.
book,
Yeah.
to teach me some chords. And I started picking that up. And this would have been, 97-ish when I picked up the guitar. Keep in mind, I got married in 1994, so I was already married when I picked up the guitar.
Wow. Okay.
Was going to college, had my first job really already in the bag there with the Brookshire Grocery Company. My wife was a nurse. Then this guitar thing kind of opened up. I started putting together this little band, and we practiced a whole lot. But it was one of my great friends who pulled me to the side in 1998. His name was Ricky Casey. He's not with us any longer, but Ricky pulled me to the side and said, hey, man, we all like to play our little guitars and sing our songs around the campfire, but you have something that's different and something that maybe you should think about pursuing. And honestly, I think just because my mindset of already having that job, already being kind of in the workforce, even though I was finishing up college at that time as well. That was the first time that I thought, maybe. And so that was 1998.
Yeah.
1999, I was in Austin. We made the trek, we made the jump, and the rest is history. But music was always around me. It just took a long time for it to get nailed into my hard head that I had a future in it.